Hi, this is Mr. Schneider. We're going to talk about the surface area and volume of a cylinder today. First thing we need to know is that a cylinder will have curves at the bases. It's very similar to a prism, but instead of polygons at the bases, we have curves at the bases. In this course specifically, we will most likely deal with a situation where we have circles at the bases. In order to find the volume of a cylinder, we'll start with the exact same formula that we would as we would with a prism, because there are two bases. We'll use volume equals area of the base times height, assuming that we have those parallel congruent bases. So with the parallel congruent bases, that, like I said, will typically be circles, our area formula for the base will be pi r squared, because the area formula for a circle is equal to pi r squared. So to calculate the volume of a cylinder, volume equals pi r squared times height. Here are a couple examples. We're going to find the volume of each cylinder. In general, because there are two bases, we use that formula, volume equals area of the base times height. But since the bases are circles, we use volume equals pi r squared times height. So if we take a look, the height being the distance between the bases is 12, but they didn't give me the radius here, they gave me the diameter. So since the diameter is 4 feet, I know the radius is half of that, so my radius is going to be 2 feet. So when I substitute in, I'll have pi times 2 squared times 12. So 2 squared is 4, 4 times 12 is 48 pi. You can leave your answers in terms of pi unless you're asked to round to something specific. So 48 pi, and then since it's a volume, I'll have a unit squared, or cubed, I mean, volume is cubed. So we're going to have feet cubed. Over on the right, we have another cylinder. It has those parallel congruent circles as bases. So volume is equal to area of the base times height. We have a circle as the base, so volume equals pi r squared times height. So volume equals pi times the radius was given this time is 5 squared times the height, which is 3. 5 squared is 25 times 3 is 75 pi. And then it's a volume, so it's a unit cubed. So we're going to have yards cubed. Given the length of the radius and the height of a right cylinder, find the lateral area and the total surface area. Well, surface area of any three-dimensional object is the area of all the surfaces put together. So we're going to have those two circles that are the bases, but that lateral area is the area of everything in between. So when we open a cylinder, what we get is a rectangle, and hopefully you can see this. But what we have is these circles at our bases, and if we unfold this, we're going to get that rectangular shape in our net if we were to open a cylinder. So the height of our cylinder is going to be sort of this vertical edge of our rectangle, but the top edge of our rectangle is going to be exactly the same as the distance around the circle at the base. The distance around a circle is called the circumference, so we're going to have to use the circumference formula to find the length of this edge. So when I find the lateral area, or when I find the surface area of a cylinder, I will suggest that you draw a net. So I'm going to have a circle at the top. I'm going to have a rectangle in the middle, which is that lateral surface. And then I'm going to have another circle at the bottom. So the radius of each circle is 4. We talked about the height of the cylinder being 12. But we need two dimensions to find the area of a rectangle, and this other dimension is the same as the circumference of the circle. And you can calculate a circumference using the formula 2 pi r. So I'm going to have 2 pi times 4 or 8 pi. To get the area of a circle, we use pi r squared. So when I take 4 and square it, that'll be 16. So I have 16 pi right here. And then I also have 16 pi for this circle. The area of the rectangle can be found using length times width. So I have 12 times 8 pi, that's 96 pi. They asked me to find two things. One thing they asked me to find was the lateral area. So lateral area is the area of everything except for the bases. So that's my 96 pi. And since it's an area, it's a unit squared, so I'll have inches squared. The other thing that you were asked to find was the total surface area. To get the total surface area, I have to add all the areas together. So I have 16 pi, and 96 pi. So when I add those together, I'm going to have 128 pi inches squared, because it's an area. And since it's a surface area, I could label it A sub s. Part B is a similar problem. So I'm going to start by drawing my net. Remember, with your net, you're going to have that rectangle in the middle representing the lateral area. You're going to have your circles as the two bases. To find the area of a circle, you need to know the radius. They told me the radius was 7. To find the area of the rectangle in the middle, that lateral area, we know the height is 11. But I need to know the other edge. And the other edge is the same as the distance around the circle. It's called circumference. And that's 2 pi r. So we're going to have 2 pi times 7, which is 14 pi. For the area of my circles, area of a circle is pi r squared. So we're going to have pi times 7 squared, or 49 pi. Same thing down here, the two bases are going to match. We're going to have those two bases that both have areas of 49 pi. For the area of a rectangle, area of the rectangle is equal to length times width, or base times height. So when I do 11 times 14 pi, I get 154 pi. That lateral area is easy, it's done. It's the area of this rectangle right here. So we have 154 pi meters squared. For the total surface area, I have to add up all the areas. So I have 49 pi, and 154 pi. When I add those together, I get 252 pi. And my unit with that is meters squared, because it's an area. In this case, it's a surface area, which you can write as a capital S. So my surface area is 252 pi meters squared. Here it tells me the volume of a right circular cylinder is 450 cubic centimeters. So I'm going to write down the formula. Volume equals area of the base times height. It's true with everything with two bases that are congruent. In this case, we have circles, so I can put pi r squared in for the area of the base. For the more specific formula, when we have the cylinder, it told me the volume is 450, so I'm going to write that in. 450 is equal to pi times the radius squared. Well, they told me the radius was 6, so I'm going to do pi times 6 squared times the height. So I can multiply 6 by itself and get 450 equals 36 pi times h. To solve for h, I have to divide by 36 pi on both sides. I'm supposed to round my answer to the nearest tenth. So obviously, when I have to round to the nearest tenth, I have to put this in my calculator. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 450 divided by 36 pi. And to put 36 pi on my calculator correctly, because I want the whole thing in the denominator, I need to use parentheses. So I use a left parenthesis, then 36 pi then a right parenthesis, then I hit enter. Said that I was supposed to round my answer to the nearest tenth. So when I round this to the nearest tenth, I'm going to have 4.0. And it's a height, so I just have a unit, and I have to match, so centimeters. The volume of a right cylinder is 72 pi feet cubed. If the height of the cylinder is 2 feet, find the radius of the cylinder. Again, volume for everything with those two parallel congruent bases is volume equals area of the base times height. Since we have this, I'd assume a circular cylinder, we would put in pi r squared for the area of the base times height. The volume is 72 pi, so 72 pi goes in for the volume. I still have my pi. In this case, they give me the height is 2 feet, so I'm going to have r squared times 2 for the height. I'm going to get rid of the pi and the 2 by dividing by 2 pi on each side. When I divide by 2 pi, the pi's cancel, the 2's cancel, the pi's cancel over here. So I get 36 equals r squared. I can take the square root of both sides. And I really should write a plus or minus 6 here, but I don't have to. And the reason I don't have to is the radius can't have a negative length. So I'm not going to write plus or minus 6. I'm just going to write 6 equals r and put a unit with it. So in this case, it's a radius, and everything else is measured in feet. So I'm going to say that my radius is measured in feet. Here we go, last problem. The areas of the bases of a cylinder are 78 square inches. The volume of the cylinder is 1,000 cubic inches. Find the height of the cylinder to the nearest tenth. So again, we have another volume problem. Volume equals area of the base times height. I don't have to put in a formula this time for the area of the base because they told me the areas of the bases are 78. They told me the volume was 1,000, so I can write 1,000 equals 78h and divide by 78 on both sides. When I divide by 78 on both sides, on the right I'm left with my h. I would get out my calculator to do 1,000 divided by 78. And it says round to the nearest tenth, so I'm going to write 12.8. I want to make sure that my unit matches. It says that inches, so I'm going to say that this is inches. So I hope that you got a good grasp of surface area and volume of a cylinder.